Coach, how are you? How's the off season going for you?
It's going good. How you guys doing?
We're doing all right.
Doing well. Enjoying the summer as much as we can.
Coach, I'm going to start you at a weird angle on this. Everybody caught shrapnel from last year. It wasn't fun for anybody. But, sitting here in the chat, we get calls, and there were a lot of questions about what goes into prepping and your assistant coaches. And I was wondering, I saw Brendan Strawn got invited to a leadership thing with Jay Billis there. Maybe you could give us a quick scouting report of your assistants. We all know Alan Griffin. He's been here a while. But the two new guys, if you could maybe give us a scouting report on what they do and what they bring to the table.
Well, Brendan Strawn, he's he's an young and upcoming assistant with a bright offensive mind. He's really good offensively, really good coach, really good connector. He does a lot of the, offensive stuff for us on that side of the ball. He's a very, very good and the whole aspect of getting everyone to understand what they need to be, where they need to be at offensively, what they need to do. And on the other end, Dan Engelstad with Alan Griffin, they do a lot of the defense. Dan is obviously a former head coach. He has a lot of experience being in the business as long as with Alan. Alan's been in the business for a long time, so it brings a lot of experience, knowledge. Dan and Griff, they kind of combine, collaborate together defensively to build up our defense. So we kind of, I like to collaborate. I like to have all our coaches have, ownership and input in the program. So those guys, that's what those guys do. And then, obviously with Alex Klein, what his responsibility is. Pete Corsiniti, we've added him as a coach. And he does a lot of our special situations, whether it's, end of the game situation, he has his hand in that. And, we sit down and we discuss different situations. So again, all of our guys have something to do, impact as far as how we build this and we work together with our team.
You mentioned defense there. We've heard you talk about the athleticism that you got out of the portal. What is your plan for defense this year to improve on that end of the court?
We got to guard the ball better. That's the first and foremost, keeping people in front of us. We got to protect the rim when we do get beat. So, those things and continue. The one thing that we did a good job of last year was rebound, so we got to continue to do that. We can't get too far at that. But really guarding the ball better, keeping the ball in front of us, that's where it starts at. And then when we do get beat, being able to contest and protect the rim better. And I think we got some guys that can do that.
Yeah, Coach, let's talk about kind of the overall transfer portal class that's come in. And it seems like it's a great class overall. And just talking about defense there made me think of William Kyle. Who's a player or maybe just something overall about this class that you think is going under the radar right now? And maybe even a misconception based on what you're seeing out there about the chatter about the class to this point.
Well, I think, I think the biggest thing is that, probably the size. I think, when people say, a center can't be 6'9". Well, if people really, look around, it's a ton of 6'9" centers, 6'10", 6'9". Once you get to that height anyway, 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", it's not that much of a difference. It's about how you play, what you made of, and the toughness part of it. And that's all that matters, So that would be the only thing that I would probably say, just from, people, discussing our team is that, you don't have, a true center, which is not true. I think this game has changed. You need to be able to be mobile. You need to be, you be able to move, athletic. You need athleticism. And I think, we address those, at that position, And so, that would probably be the one thing that I would say is that you don't have to be 6'11" or 7 feet to be considered a center. I think the center spot is, someone that's mobile, that can protect the rim, and that is big enough. And I think, the guys that we have are big enough.
there's not a lot of tape on the guys you got, and so there's a lot of question marks on it. Coach Boeheim spoke highly of William Kyle. What kind of player is he?
William Kyle is an NBA athlete. When you talk about guys like, his comparisons, guys like Mitchell Robinson, guys like, Robert Williams, that's up at the NBA. Those guys that are, that athleticism just jumps off the page right away. You're talking about a guy that's 6'9", 44-inch vertical, 7'3" wingspan, and I think when you look at, you say limited, you look at his time that he was on the court. He played in a lot of games, so he got his experience in some games more than others. But did he have big minutes consistently? No, but he got experience. But his shot blocking and the way he can move and get up the court, he's faster than some guards. A guy that can guard on the perimeter. If we have to switch. So again, his athleticism jumps off the charts right away, and the shot blocking is something that's appealing.
Seems like overall you got a ton of athleticism in the portal. I guess we've talked so much about the new guys and the fan base is all interested in the new guys. We can kind of lose sight of the fact that you retain Donnie Freeman and J.J. Starling, who are two potential stars for you next year. Specifically with Donnie, Coach, just how excited are you to have him for another year, knowing that he's the type of talent that is maybe just kind of scratching the surface of how good he really can be?
To retain JJ and Donnie, I think that's where everything started for us. And I know, if we could retain those guys and they came back, we'd always be in a better position than we were last year, as far as upgrading your talent and having talent. But Donnie in particular, he's had a year to play and watch and get better. I think, when the game gets taken away from you, you have to sit and watch, especially at a young age. I think it gives you perspective, understanding what we're asking of him and what he needs to do. And I think he was able to learn while he was recovering. But just excited about him. I mean, he's a super talent. I mean, a guy that averaged 13 to 14 points, 8 rebounds, in playing limited games. You're just excited about what he can be, and I think he's ready to take that step. He's really worked hard this summer to improve his body, to get back into the conditioning that he needs to be in. So he's again, that's a great starting block.
Another player coming in is a young kid, a freshman that we're getting a lot of questions about is Luke Fennel. Eric Devendorf said he played in a league with men, and what does he bring, and is he part of your plans going forward this year?
Everybody is, but Luke Fennel is a very, very talented young player. That is like Eric said, he's practiced and played with men. High IQ, has great feel for the game, can shoot the ball. Obviously he's still, to be his first time over here playing. So it'll take him a little bit of time to adjust, and we'll get him up to speed. Have him ready by the season. But a guy that's super talented, 6'6", can play the point, can play off the ball. Just high IQ, very good in ball screens, can pass and shoot the ball.
Coach, I'm wondering your thoughts right now on the non-conference schedule. I'm sure this is kind of the time of the year where you're still trying to iron out what the games are and things like that, and you don't have to divulge anything that's not out there already, but just in general, you seem to have scheduled tough to this point, and I know the ACC overall is trying to get as many quad one opportunities in the non-con, and that's important. What's your view on how the schedule is going to be this year, maybe compared to previous years?
I think it'll be pretty balanced to what you were speaking of, trying to have that balance of playing and challenging yourself early, but also being able to play some games that you can, get your guys comfortable and get ready, prepared for the league. So I think this year's schedule will be a lot more balanced than it has been in the past, but it's still pretty difficult, still pretty challenging early, which I still believe in that. I think you need to see where you're at early so that you can work on it as you get ready for your conference play.
Are you planning on going to New York City this year, or playing any games at neutral sites, Washington, New York?
No, we won't be going to New York City this year. but we do have some plans to play some neutral site games in areas that are Syracuse friendly. That we have a lot of support fans. We always try to do that. We try to address those. We have a great fan base. Especially all up and down the Northeast. So always looking at those options.
What about, we know that the Players Era tournament, that NIL tournament in Las Vegas is happening. We don't know the matchups, but what excited you about that potential tournament and that fit? And is that kind of why you maybe don't have as many options to go to New York City or stuff like that, knowing you're doing that tournament, which is over Thanksgiving, I guess?
Yeah, the Players Era tournament is, it's something that we were one of the first couple of schools to sign up on when it started out 2 years ago. And so this is our year to start participating in it. And it's something that I talked about when I took over, being able to get back to where we need to get to in this new landscape. One of the things I thought was scheduling. I thought we had to, go out and play in some exciting tournaments, in some big time tournaments to keep our brand out there. Obviously, you want to play well and win those games. That helps as well. But you got to be in those to win them, and you got to be involved in those. So, that was one thing, I talked about when I took over. It's, challenging ourselves early and getting into some of these events. I think it's great for the fans. I think it's great for our team. It's great for our brand, to be involved in these type of tournaments, and now we just got to take care of business and do what we need to do.
Coach, you bring up the NIL tournament in today's landscape. How was this year compared to last year for you guys? Do you feel like you were in a better spot?
I think with the settlement and the House settlement, you knew that was going to get across the finish line. I thought that helped us a lot as far as the financial stuff. That made it a lot easier. And then obviously adding Alice Klein and Eugene, being able to kind of have that ready to go once the season ended. I thought that helped us get through the process and kind of identify what we wanted, what we needed, and being able to go out there and execute the plan a lot smoother than my first year when we hit the portal.
Another thing I want to ask you about, Coach, is the new rules that came out. I guess it was this week. You'll now have an option to challenge plays next year. What do you make of the new rules in college basketball and that a coach's challenge is going to be a thing?
I think it's good. I think this game has grown and it's right is right under where all of our players want to go, the NBA, and even sometimes you have coaches that want to get to that. I love the fact that we keep changing and adapting the game. It's so competitive, it's so hard to win. So to be anything that can help you better the game and better the results and give everybody a chance, because referees are human, so there are mistakes that are made, and I think this helps the game. It's better for the game, and we have to practice that now, during the summer. So we'll start working on that, getting ready to prepare to put that into our game plan.
Coach, anything we didn't hit on or you want to get across to the fans before we let you go?
No, I'm just excited about this group. I think every coach is, but I'm really excited about this group. I think, after going through last year and experiencing some things, I just think we're in a better place. I know we will, the results will be better this year. I'm better, as a coach. This program is in a better place. I think we addressed the things that we needed to address. So I'm just excited. The fans should be excited. We got a super talented group. I think the group that we have, they all have a chip. They all have a story. We all have a chip. We all have a story. We all want to, get this thing going to where we needed to get to. And again, I'm better. Our coaching staff is better. So I'm excited about getting these guys on campus and moving forward. And I hope our fans are excited. The one thing I'll say is last year's the past is the past. Let's move forward. And the good thing about it is that, our fans are passionate. I understand it. And that's what makes this place special. But I'm looking forward to turning those things that were upsetting to smiles this year, and that's the plan, and we're looking forward to it. So I'm excited. I want everyone to be excited about it. It's a lot of great things going on. This is a new era of college athletics, and I think when you have change, you got to make that change. And I think we've went through the bad times. I think it's nothing but looking forward, going forward, and nothing but high and good expectations going forward.
All right, Coach. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you as we get closer to the basketball season.
All right, guys. Take care. Enjoy.
It's Coach Autry.
Yeah.